The sack of Rome in 1455, Genseric and the Vandals. Did you know that Rome was sacked several times in its history? One of the most devastating episodes occurred in 455, when the city fell into the hands of the Vandals, a Germanic population led by King Genseric. But what led to this event? Let's take a step back. The Vandals were a people originally from Central Europe who, in the course of the Great Migrations, moved through Gaul and Spain until they reached North Africa. In 429, under the leadership of Genseric, they crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and conquered Roman Africa, establishing a powerful kingdom with Carthage as its capital. This conquest made the Vandals a fearsome force, thanks also to their powerful fleet, which began to control the Western Mediterranean and threaten Roman territories. In an attempt to stabilize relations between the Vandals and the Romans, a treaty was signed in 435 between Genseric and the Emperor Valentinian III. The agreement provided that the Vandals would obtain official recognition of their conquests in Africa in exchange for peace with the Western Roman Empire. Furthermore, to strengthen this alliance, a dynastic marriage was established between Eudocia, daughter of Valentinian, and Huneric, son of Genseric. However, this fragile truce was broken in 455, when Valentinian was assassinated in a conspiracy orchestrated by the general Petronius Maximus, who proclaimed himself emperor. One of Maximus' first decisions was to annul the marriage between Eudocia and Huneric, thus breaking the alliance with the Vandals. This act was seen as a betrayal by Genseric, who took the opportunity to intervene directly in the affairs of Rome. Genseric organized a large naval expedition and, with his fleet, crossed the Mediterranean until he reached the Italian coast. The news of the arrival of the Vandals threw Rome into chaos. Petronius Maximus, fearing for his life, tried to flee the city, but was killed by the rioting crowd. Without a leader and with an army that no longer existed, Rome was left defenseless. On June 22, 1455, Genseric and his army entered the Eternal City. Pope Leo I, as he had done 3 years earlier with Attila, presented himself before the Vandal king to negotiate. He managed to obtain a promise that the Vandals would not burn the city or massacre its inhabitants, but Rome was nevertheless systematically sacked for 2 weeks. The Vandals carried off an immense quantity of treasures, works of art and valuable objects, such as the treasures of the Temple of Jerusalem, which had been brought to Rome centuries earlier by Titus after the destruction of the city in 70 AD. In addition to material goods, Genseric also ordered the deportation of thousands of Roman citizens, such as Valentinian's widow, Licinia Eudoxia, and her daughters, who were taken to Africa as hostages. The sack of Rome in 1455 marked one of the most critical moments in the decline of the Western Roman Empire. Unlike Alaric's sack in 1410, which lasted only 3 days, the Vandal occupation was much more methodical and devastating, so much so that the term vandalism we use today derives from this event. This episode demonstrated the extreme weakness of the Western Roman Empire, which was no longer able to defend its own capital. A little more than 20 years later, in 476, the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, would be deposed, marking the definitive end of the Western Empire and the beginning of the Middle Ages.